Well, good morning, church. It's November the 17th, and we're in Acts 25. I'll read verses 1 through 6. This whole section is called Paul's Appeal to Caesar, but we won't quite get into that. Now, 3 days after Festus had arrived in the province, he went up to Jerusalem from Caesarea, and the chief priests and the principal men of the Jews laid out their case against Paul, and they urged him, asking as a favor against Paul that he summon him to Jerusalem, because they were planning an ambush to kill him on the way. Festus replied that Paul was being kept at Caesarea, and that he himself intended to go there shortly. So, said he, let the men of authority among you go down with me, and if there is anything wrong about the man, let them bring charges against him. After he stayed among them not more than 8 or 10 days, he went down to Caesarea, and the next day he took his seat on the tribunal and ordered Paul to be brought. We know very little about Festus. You may remember, as we've been going through Acts, that Felix was the governor, and Felix kind of kept Paul around, not really doing anything, hoping that Paul would pay him off, bribe him. Well, Festus is very different. We don't know much about Festus, but we know that he had a strong instinct for Roman justice, and he wanted to see Paul got fair play. So he wanted to be there and have the religious leaders, the Jewish leaders, bring charges against Paul. Well, you may remember from other parts of Acts that Paul was a Roman citizen, and as such had certain privileges. Like when he was about to be flogged, he used that Roman citizenship to prevent that. The Romans is where we get a lot of our judicial principles. So Paul knows from what we learned in Acts 23 that he was going to need to testify in Rome concerning the facts about our Lord Jesus and the hope of the resurrection of the dead. And so he knows that the way to do that is to appeal to Caesar. And I know that's going to be taken up later. But I'm reminded of what Paul told Timothy in chapter 3 to basically pray for our leaders. We know that the gospel flourishes when there's peace, when we are submitting to our leaders, when we're praying for them. And so what I think the takeaway here is we can use government to help us proclaim the gospel, but we know that we're not always going to get a fair shake in the legal system, just as Paul wasn't going to get a fair shake in Jerusalem. And so we'll have to continue that later. Thank you.